So you realize that there's some kind of disparity. There's no fairness, okay? And that is why I'm proposing that this meeting, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Chair, that we should focus on how to actually use the vehicle of love to intervene in humanity.
Okay, addressing it from that point of view, can't we also look at it from this angle that the superpowers could use this humanitarian intervention to take advantage over the weak nations?
My point here is that coming to the war that was orchestrated by Tony Blair and John Bush, that supports the viewpoint of the other school of thought, which is if humanitarian intervention is given legitimacy, the powerful nations will take advantage. And so where they think their interest is, they will just come in and attack you because they feel they are powerful. Iraq in the early 90s also, flexed their muscles on Iran. And because U.S. has interest, they quickly came into, dealing with the situation there. So it's a very dicey situation here. When it is legitimized, then the powerful nations are at advantage as against the smaller nations who will be at a disadvantage. That is how I say it.
Let us look at page 5, that's 168.
Please, don't we forget we have the hot seat. If you want to drive the conversation any hotter.
Annan contrasts the interventionist view that of the state in the global south, who expressed for it that human intervention is a Trojan horse. I don't know if you've read that Trojan story. Rhetoric designed to legitimate the interference of the strong in the affairs of the weak.
Okay, to start, I would like to move from come to his and then come to yours. Jojo said we should use love instead of violence. Now, I'm not a believer of violence myself. By using line 60 to 61, it's actually lists some of the causes of these disasters, and it includes civil war and anarchy. And in the course of the text, it mentions rebels and juntas. Now, these rebels and juntas are equipped with high-performance weapons. Okay? Again, I underline, I'm not a believer of violence. So, imagine the peacekeeping corps goes, and then, hello, 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 please put your guns down and let's talk. Do you understand my point? There is even no entry to get to the point and say, hello, hello, please let's talk. You might advance with love, but there are greater weapons won't let you even move a step further. Sometimes if persuasion fails, and in this case when I say persuasion, I mean peace talks, meetings, summits, seminars. If persuasion fails, force is outlined. I get your point. Okay. And then to come back to what my brother here said about okay, let me come to yours. I remember yours a bit about legitimizing interference, as in strong states interfering in greater states, interfering in weaker states. I'll use lines 163 and 164, where it says that today's globalized world is so integrated that massive human rights violations in one part of the world have an effect on every other part, creating moral obligations for intervention. You understand my point? Okay. Something that happens, we have a saying that goes that entowa da, and I won't say obi about the share. Now I say you get my point. The entowa da, it is not your problem, so you actually sleep. God forbid, but should in case the leader of cocoa production should have a problem, in this instance I'm saying Ghana, God forbid, what will happen? when you go to other countries in the West, the best chocolates are made from cocoa in Ghana. Actually, it's written on it, cocoa from Ghana. It affects every other thing, including food, especially in these Arab countries, in these Maghrebian countries and Arab countries. So basically, if we leave everything to chance per se, or if we leave everything to the sovereignty of each state, we are leaving room for disaster. It might not come immediately, it might not come massively, but then it's a ripple effect. It starts something. I hope I made myself clear.
Yeah, thank you. We've just been joined by a gentleman. You introduce himself.
Yeah, but before he comes in, I also want to look at it from business point of view, because I want to say that humanitarian is a beautiful thing. We should not look at it from the negative side. We should look at the positive aspect of humanity or humanitarian interventions. Now, the point is that I'm a believer of privateerism.
I've been waiting for this.
I'm advocate for private sector or entrepreneurship. And let me be honest and say that today the private sector is dying. The private sector is going through a series of difficulties. And it takes only the intervention of IMF to salvage the situation. Now, the point is that there are a lot of debate that IMF coming in, why are we allowing IMF to come in and all that? But the point is that their intervention would actually support the group or will propel the group of private sector. The only problem I have is some of the conditionalities. But if they can actually look at it from law, where they will think about real growth of the private sector instead of tying a lot of conditionalities around it, it will help Ghana. So the point I'm making is that, yes, some have the view that intervention may have some Mephistopheles aspect of it, but to me, I want to look at it from the love aspect, the beautiful side of the HI. That's the point I want.
So, in other words, in intervention, there can be economic values. So, we like to hear from our visitor.
Thank you very much. My name is Richmond Odatilamti. I've listened attentively to the discussion so far, and I have some few divergent opinions as to what some of you have expressed. My sister made a point in line 161 to 163. Civilization of this line of thought, some, like the architect of the Iraq and the Afghan wars, Tony Blair and George Bush, are the most prominent, argue that today's globalized world is so integrated that massive human rights violations in one part of the world have an effect on every other part, creating moral obligations for intervention. We have to be careful when these people talk or they speak. There is always an agenda that we have to, because they propagated these things, and as one of you said, they went to Iraq. They couldn't find any weapon of mass destruction. Yet, in stating this fact that yes, we are in a globalized world, for that matter, we need to intervene. You just have to be careful. The interest of these global powers within the geopolitical system is very, very great. And it's very fundamental in everything that they do. My brother made a point about Pakistan, about the interest of US in Pakistan. And it has also been expressed in this document that Pakistan is very critical to the US, as raised by Quilla and then Pakistan. When you look at the geographical location of Pakistan, which fortunately are not for you to look at it. Look at Pakistan. Sorry if you can't see, but it's on the team. Put it in the camera. You have Afghanistan, you have Pakistan, you have China within this area. what is happening is that Afghanistan is critical to the US because of within the Caspian Sea, they have oil there. Now they wanted to build this oil network to serve the Western world. So whatever it is that they will do to ensure that look, they have access to that oil is very critical to them. Prior to September 11, there was this whole huge talk about preemptive strike, even in Iraq and everything. The so-called preemptive strike is also based on the premise of humanitarian intervention that we need to, because we are thinking about your country. That if you don't take action now, to relation to your country, all those things that they said, look, it's just because of what? Oil. They have great interest. It's the interest that which is paramount. So they may come and glorify this in terms of ethically rights, we need to intervene and everything, but look, it's their interest. There was a point which was made about issue of we need to distinguish between natural disasters. We have natural disasters, fair enough, giving aid to the people and everything, great. But when you have military intervention, also there's also a form of humanitarian intervention. The key driver is that look, what is in it for me? What is in it for us? That's the motivation. So I'll urge that we strictly look at most of these things from a very geopolitical system, in the sense that look, can we have access to these raw materials to satisfy our needs in our country? Can we control this particular region so at the end of the day we'll feel safer in our country? You mentioned the fact that look, you believe in private sector-led whatever it is, but please, the corporations in the US, the global multinational corporations, they are financing most of these governments and for that matter, even the UN. The UN is funded by hugely, most of their budget, the UN, IMF, and all those institutions, most of their budget is financed by the US government. Where are they getting their money from? There was an agreement sometime after the Cold War, the World War II. Now look, the countries with huge funds, or the wealthy nations, they should support developing nations or the lesser, the least developed nations. To the extent that they should contribute about 5% of their budget in terms of aid to those least developed countries, so that they also develop to that extent. 5% of the US economy, do you know how much it's to be worth? And do you know how much they give? As per my last check, they were giving around $70 billion to these institutions from the US government.
Is that being 5%?
No, it's hopefully it's around 0.5% or 0 point something. The only countries that were able to were meeting those are those in the Nordic or Sweden, the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Norway, and those who were giving sufficient towards these institutions because of what they are really providing that humanitarian whatever it is that we are looking at. But for the US, they will bring you some little aid. They are looking at, do you have any resource? Is that country a means to an end for them? Everybody with aid. Yeah. And most of this funding are coming from the corporations, the multinationals, because what? They have an agenda. If we have an IMF bailout, great, good for us. But it's unfortunate that perhaps we have maybe messed our country up. But when they come out with those conditions and everything, we have recently signed what you call the EPA agreement or something with the Euro area. Do you think it's in our interest?
Yeah, that is why I think I'm not cutting you, but I think you've made your point. And that is why I'm looking at how love can be the ingredients in whatever we do, whatever effort that we actually think we can use to help others. They should be done. But you know, the point is that you mentioned about some corporations in the US that support some of these atrocious activities. But I'll also tell you that most of the giant companies, including the Microsoft company, yes, they actually have a charity. Okay, they have huge charity that supports a lot of activities, including its HIV/AIDS project. So we cannot always say that they have a negative agenda when it comes to humanitarian. You know.
Let me share a point with you. You made a point about Ebola. When just recently, the question I need to ask is, why is it that all this war, until and unless the American citizen was affected with Ebola, that they provided that serum to treat. When our brothers and sisters were dying, nothing happened. You see, when it comes to vaccine production, why should I produce this vaccine to cure this disease? Once I'm looking at only 2,000 deaths, 3,000 deaths. The things that look, let me make a point. The things that look, if we, the scale of death very huge, then we warrant an investment of whatever billions of dollars. And the thinking that, look, if I produce for the next 10 years, we're going to make so much money. And this will be financed by the corporations. So they are not investing. What WHO is currently doing, they are okay, look, mobilizing funds and everything, contributions back from the various nations. What are the contributions? Very small. US talking about $140 million to WHO just for Ebola. Look, until and unless we find solutions to our own issues, look, these global powers, I'm telling you.
I agree with you.
So I would like to come in here to rechannel our this. So if you look at our handout 157-6, aside this view, objections to HR are varied. Many have questioned its legal foundation, and others maintain that it could be a precaution to selective justice phenomenon, where state will only intervene in instances where it satisfies their national interest. So, talking about the Ebola, what do you think is the interest of America in the Ebola case?
Wait, I know you are addressing Richmond, but I would like to answer.
Yeah.
Effectively, he's already answered. He made a point of raising the antivirals that will cost antiviral drug that will cost more. No, unfortunately, I may not have facts, I may not have doubts, but listening to others, radio talks, debates, speak talks, it looks like America has been put under the microscope, and unfortunately, it's always found wanting. But my point is, there's no American here to defend them. So I'll probably take a small aspect of defending them. Are we so sure they are that guilty? We don't have proof, facts, documents. Fine, we can sit back and put additions of massive debt, massive weapons together and create our own scenario. But how accurate are these scenarios? They said nuclear weapons in the Arab states, so they're going there. Fine, for the moment, we haven't seen any evidence of nuclear weapons. But what's the proof that tomorrow we won't see it? I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm saying before we actually scrutinize them, we should be careful. Secondly, with this Ebola that they have the virus, what's the guarantee that they just didn't find it? See?
So would that go to say their interest is simply because
my point
when
is,
the Ebola disease breaks beyond bounds, everybody is vulnerable, including American citizens.
That's the point.
That's the point.
So because it will affect their own citizens and perhaps might be transported into their own country,
that's the point.
therefore causing an outbreak in their own land, so they are intervening. So still the point of interest is still there.
I think that sometimes we blame Americans for things that they did not cause or things they have not caused. It is like saying that when two people are brother and sister or brothers are fighting, they are hitting each other and they are killing each other. And then they tell themselves, oh, so when we were fighting, nobody is coming to actually separate us or intervene. That is a kind of concept we are trying to put out there. The point is that America is also a nation with their own problems. Okay, so you don't expect them to, take your problems upon their problem. Yes, they've been supporting, but I don't think they can do every single thing. So I don't want us to always put the blame on them.
Some children were abducted by the Boko Haram in Nigeria, among other atrocities. And for all this while, we've not heard America coming. So does it mean they don't have interest in it? That's why they are coming. They were really coming in. But those that they have interest in, the superpower is coming.
Yeah, let me come in. From your question, you realize I would say that yes. For now, they don't have the interest. If you take it from my lady's argument that he doesn't see where America goes wrong. If we look at the earlier Senior Bush Gulf War, where Iraq evaded Kuwait, that is an Arab affair. Then they moved in there. Though, as they couldn't succeed, the younger Bush mastered. And if we are taking it from the analysis Richmond has just shown us, and which is a fact, America has the largest oil reserves in the world they don't use, and they are depending on the oil of the other world. As we speak today, after intervening in Iraq and getting rid of Saddam Hussein, America is building Iraq. And if we say America is building Iraq, you know what it entails. They are using their own money, even in Libya today. You see, so if by your actions, we could easily conclude, yes, so Nigeria, no, because so far, the interest that the West has on Nigeria, they already have gotten it. So with this one, assuming there were other resources like oil in the northern at the northern sector of Nigeria, they would have moved in. So if you look at the text talking about the area which talks about selective interests, yes, it comes in, it fits in well there. Where they have interest, they move in. Where they don't have, you look at the example of the Liberian War, the Rwandan situation. Look at how long it took. You see how people were massacred before they reluctantly came in. Fine, they came and it stopped. So if that is the case, why didn't you come in early which would have saved so many lives? So, in fact, with me, from my point, I see that they will always move in when they have their interests at stake.
And to add to what you are saying on the selective justice, Syria, for how long have Syria been thrown into chaos? Only God knows the number of years now, but nobody is intervening. Like Sierra Leone, it took several years for international intervention to save those who are cutting the limbs of people. And look at what is happening in the Iran-Syria area by this ISIS. Yes, not until 2 journalists of US have been beheaded. Nobody's expressing an interest. And now Obama is massing support to dislodge those guys from there. So the baseline is interest.
There's no fairness.
Baseline is interest.
Okay, actually, I'm like a goat in Animal Farm. It's here. You see, should America be right in their propaganda, and then they go in with mass or armed intervention, then I'll say they violated their moral obligation, as is stated in line, I think 327, that they are morally obligated not to shed the blood of their soldiers for personal interest or for ulterior motives. They violated it all together. And then for the issue of the Boko Haram in Nigeria, now this is the case. We have a school of thought that is basically pushing for sovereignty. Is Nigeria capable of solving their own problem? Are they not capable? I didn't follow the presidential speech towards this particular case, but did he outwardly ask for aid? No, I don't think so. He didn't outwardly ask for aid. Neither did he, should I say, hint about it. So basically, if we don't have any other person coming in, we assume, oh, Nigeria is capable of solving their own problem. Fine, they are campaigning for sovereignty. They are winning. You understand? You get my point? And then as to the business aspect of bringing love into private sector, excuse me to say, is here I will endorse selective intervention, especially for venture capitalists. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. There is no love in that. We are in business to make profit. You get my point? If I'm investing into your business, I expect that I bring in my own expertise. I put in options A, B, and C. You understand? Love is not there.
I agree perfectly with you, because that's the belief of Americans. But I read a script some time back, and it said there's this old American king who invited all the wise men in the community to come out with a book that will guide the way Americans should live in the community, how they should live. Now the same people came out with a volume of book. They went, presented it to the king. The king looked at it and said, it's too bulky, reduce it. They scrutinized, reduced it to 10 pages. When they said, still bulky. They came back, one page, he says, too bulky. Now he said, I want only one sentence. So when they came back, they brought the sentence. And the sentence reads, there's no free lunch anywhere. Now the point is, I agree that there's no free lunch anywhere. It means that in every situation, you have to make profit. But the point too is that you can also alleviate somebody's problem, okay, by supporting the person. You can still make profit, but there should be that element of help. That's why we have corporate social responsibilities today. All the organizations, even though they are thinking about profit, but they also think that, what can I contribute to my community? What can I contribute to society? So, yes, profits, I believe in that. But there should be elephantine love. Showing whatever it is.
That's the third one.
We allow our listeners also come in, and then he can advocate for us to go to
Yes. On the legalist perspective, from 193, it's according to statutes, the normative argument of the responsibility to protect also applies in equal measure to all states, including interveners taking care of their citizens, not to expose them to risk, only to save strangers. The legalist, that's one answer. The legalist object because there is no basis for humanitarian intervention in international law, according to Bellamy and Miller. So indeed, from this, it means that there's no basis for humanitarian intervention from a legal perspective. There's the last point I want to make so that I can leave you. (326) from page 10. Nine, 326. So 325. See, for statists such as Samuel Huntington, who argued that intervening states like the US have no moral authority to shed the blood of their soldiers, only to save strangers like of the Somalis.
Which number?
326. No moral authority to shed the blood of their soldiers, only to save strangers like of the Somalis. This man, Samuel Huntington, look, this man is an advisor. Sometimes when these people talk, perhaps we need to check and be promoting that moral authority. You know, our moral authority. He wrote a book, Clash of Civilization. This man is an advisor to one of the US leaders, I think George Bush also, and then I think Jimmy Carter. And he preempted the fact that, look, the Western world, their civilization that they think, oh, we have reached there, and for that matter, the rest of the world should adopt. He wrote something about it, that look, there will be a time that we will have challenges because we are trying to impose what we think is the best. So this person advises most of the governments as to what they should do. So the things that are happening since 2000s, the 2000 era, the 90s and the 2000s and then now, the geopolitical system, they all have roles to play. So when they talk about the fact that, look, and the US do not have a moral authority to send their people. Now even the US governments, within their own, their citizens, they are capturing data of their own citizens. And they will come out with laws in code that, look, if you know the fact that they are thinking about the utilitarian, that will look, if we don't take this action, we don't do this, it will affect us. They will rather go and then take action against other countries. So when sometimes some of them they make these comments, some of us we take it with a pinch of salt. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Nice having you.
Thanks for joining. Any other hot seater?
They are afraid of the horses, so we shall still be
Take the hot seat.
comfortable. Having listened to our guest, this thing, we have realized that we need to move into an aspect of the legality. Can we open to page 8 and read from 260? 260. Other objectionists, this time from the legal perspective, insist that the common good is best preserved by maintaining the status quo, observing the sovereignty of states.
Left with about 5 minutes.
We have about 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we can come.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like us to rather conclude. In conclusion, have a look at the two schools of thought. One that believes that it is good, and the other that believes that it is not good for various reasons. Now, what is the way forward? What could be done about it so that the powerful states will not take advantage over the weaker ones, or humanitarian intervention will not be meant on what? Benefit or interest. So I would like us to look at that so that we can come out with a profound document that can address the issue.
Let me go here. Ladies first. Alright. I will answer with unfortunately I was reading it now I can't see it. Okay. I would answer with line 351, 352, 353, 354, and 355. Should we do nothing? The consequences of doing nothing. It states that in the case of Haiti, Pakistan, Sierra Leone, what would have been? What if? Maybe. Why not? What would have been if there was no intervention aid? Now, let me conclude by saying that humanitarian interventions, of course, as discussed so far, has its both strong points and weak points. But then, do we let go completely? No, we can't let go completely. Since we can't let go completely, then I'll end with line 338 and 339 that states that alongside many aspects of human life, the good and the bad together, let me put it this way, alongside the many aspects of humanitarian intervention, the good and the bad together, do we ignore it or do we take it up? But then, we can consider it when the need for intervention is needed.
So that is a contribution.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it from the perspective of the world ordered into, so to speak, have and have-nots, where others are able to be on their own, irrespective of the situation. For instance, if you're using the Japanese crisis of nuclear leakage, where they solely came on themselves, by themselves, were able to sort out the situation. Vis-a-vis, there is this one other.
Haiti.
No. The hurricanes in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they solve these problems all by themselves. So that if countries like, I don't think the Japanese situation or the American hurricanes, you know, did not take lives, just like it happened in Haiti, you know. But so that if they could be able to, then it dawns on those of us who would always take cap in hand, you see, to be looking up to the others, because the moment they come in, obviously they must come and at the end of the day be able to take away some of your resources to pay back for the costs. So it should dawn on us to position ourselves psych-wise so that we are able to liberate ourselves from these sort of inferiority complexes, so that we're able to match these people equally, and then we can decide at any point in time. Then it would have also prevented situations where groups within our states, because that is where these things happen, you know, take on the country, brings the country to its knees, such that these people would have to come and save situations. This is how I also look at it.
We take one more point so that we can run.
I also think that, look, if we should go by legitimizing HI, humanitarian intervention, what it means is we've seen earlier on that, look, the superpowers will take it and run with it to their advantage. Now, on the other hand, if we also uphold the principles of sovereignty, now what will happen is that the likes of Haiti and others will be left on their own, and then until the country runs to the ground. So what we need to do is to look at the whole, school of thought, and then see how we can, put measures in place. Although it's difficult because you don't know the intentions of the, intervening countries or the states. So it's a very difficult one.
So, thank you very much for this time. Since we are behind time, we'd like to close here. But before we close, ladies and gentlemen, let's consider these two questions. Number one, why then is al-Bashir, the Sudanese leader, being perceived for Darfur and not only Blair for Iraq? Two, second question, why is the Hague Court, founding member being America, no longer a member? Meanwhile, other countries, and currently an African country, the United States. Consider these questions.
All right. Well, I think that was a beautiful discussion. Well, we're going to delve into it. We're going to share our views. Before that, I will invite Lawyer Zachariah Tanko to give his perspectives. Obviously, from legal perspective, from a human rights perspective, because he deals in that as well, and other perspectives that he can share.
Thank you very much. I really find it quite an exciting discussion. It's quite interesting. I've also learned some perspective I take to my students. I teach them using this sort of formula, but in a totally different format. Of course, the level is different. But just, even though I acknowledge that this is an executive MBA class, and therefore public speaking might not be something that you're bothered about, but I do teach public speaking, and I think it's very important as executive MBA people to understand some just basic do's and don'ts of public speaking. And I just picked up one or two things that I just want to draw your attention to. In other words, when you started the discussion by saying good evening everyone, that was very good. But you started on a very, very down note, because you acknowledged straight away that it was a very, very lengthy text and it was going to be boring. You don't start a presentation by drawing people to the attention that what you're going to engage in is boring. You might end up losing them. So even if it's boring, you've got to find a way of trying to attract the people to stay glued to whatever discourse you'll be having. Is very, very important. Because the thing about public speaking, you know what I've shared? This is public speaking, is that within the first 30 seconds, that's when you can lose people. And once you lose them, it's difficult to get them back. And it's within that first 30 seconds that you are your nervous best. So you don't want to do anything that would also pump up the nerves in that particular instance. So it's very, very important. But you guys were interacting, you were doing the eye contact, very, very, very important. But you weren't doing any eye contact, which is very, very, very good. You need to make eye contact. But of course, that's culture sensitive. Because too much eye contact, doing eyeball to eyeball in a certain context, can be seen as very disrespectful. If you're talking to an elderly person and you're doing eyeball to eyeball, that can be taken in a different context. But universally, they tend to interpret it to mean that either you don't believe what you're saying, you are nervous, or you have something to hide. So try and make some eye contact if you can. It's very important. The other thing I noticed is Dr. Menson told me that you guys were expected to be making references to the text. You did that by in a very sparing way. You didn't really refer to the text. And most of the arguments you were having has been actually resolved for you in the text. In all those arguments, and this is what academics do, don't they? The academics would always start something, not because they don't have the answer. They have the answer, but they just want to tease different types of argument. And so all the answers were there. But because you were not really referring to the text, so the discussions was all over the place. There wasn't any focus to that discussion. In other words, we start from one point to the other, and you can compartmentalize the discussions if you had gone that way. So it would be very, very important that you do that. Now looking at the issues are, there is no right, because remember they gave you a clue. They said there are varied definitions to what? Humanitarian intervention. And you haven't really asked yourself, why is that? Why do they have so many different definitions of that? And they said, why? It's because it's a social science. And social science is a subjective arena. And if it's subjective, you're not going to have any objective definition about that. But of course, you need to be able to persuade, attract people to your argument. And if you're able to attract people to your argument, then, of course, but you cannot in social science say, well, because people are expressing their opinions, and he alluded to that. People are expressing their opinions, but because they claim to be authorities in that particular field, we are taking in, thinking that, well, what they are saying is the alpha and omega. But that's the opinion. You can agree and disagree with it. So we missed the opportunity to pick up from that particular aspect of what is social science. Why do we have different definitions? And there was a very interesting point which you both not talked about. You tried to tease that out, getting to the latter part, and you said, so what's the way forward? What's the way forward? They said in the text that what about the diplomatic route? In other words, the preventative route. Why do we even get to that stage where we have to intervene? Is there anything we could do before we get to that stage? Something that would prevent people from coming at each other. Of course, you can't avoid that where it's humanitarian in terms of natural disasters and all those things. You cannot prevent that. But in terms of the armed conflicts, can we do something to prevent that? And I think we missed an opportunity to address that point. There was also another point. You gave a very interesting example about two people fighting. Was it you? Yeah, two people fighting, brothers and sisters, and they throw their hands in despair and say, why were we killing each other and nobody bothered to intervene? Yeah, that's a legitimate question, and you try to look at it from the perspective of the Americans. But when the two brothers who were fighting, the fight was instigated by the person who is seeking to intervene. After he has intervened, do we dance palogo and pop champagne to congratulate him for intervening? That's another issue that we need to be addressing. And how do we deal with that? And that's what that brings us back to the question about why do we have people like the Basels and all those things, the Liberian president. They are the ones who are always facing the international tribunals, and the others are not. Yet when you look at the antecedents of what they've done and how they got into what it is, there is elements there to suggest that yes, something can be done about it. And there was something here that was very profound as well. About what role should the citizens of the people you're trying to intervene have, what role should they play? If you're coming to intervene, you're coming from outside. You can't be mourning more than the mourner. And if you want to mourn more than the mourner, then that's when you play into the hands of people to say, what's their interest? What interest have you got in there? If you haven't got any interest, then let us feel we have a stake in trying to resolve our own problem. And you rightly said, look at what happened in Iraq. In Iraq, when you look at the construction that is taking place there, all the big firms, that you could trace it to some of the powerful people who pushed the argument in the first place. So the whole question about the UN intervention, there is a whole argument about whether the institution, UN itself, its legitimacy, is it really relevant in the 21st century? When you have people who can choose at any particular point in time to decide whether they are going to stop something from happening if they disagree with it. So those are other issues that you can talk about. But as for the argument about the propriety or the impropriety of intervention, not intervening, well, of course, there are some moral arguments to make for that. Forget about the legal arguments, but there are some moral arguments to make for that. But whose morals? Because we are talking about ethics, that's where ethics comes in. But whose ethics? Do we have a universal standard for ethics? Or we would respect the culture, continent, country's sensitivity of ethics. And therefore when we are going in, we go in